Hello, slots enthusiasts. How are you? It's great to hang out with you again for another Professor Slots podcast and live stream. Today, we're going to be diving into another way to improve your theoretical payout percentage by assessing casinos, choosing slot machines, and what am I doing here? Right, and identifying your gambling goals. This time, we'll be talking about what your state has to offer in terms of gaming regulations. There's a lot of variety out there. But first, if you're with us during the live stream, always these little hitches here and there, make sure you say hello to everyone in the live chat. Let us know where you are at and where you play slots. I'll check in with the live chat in a few minutes, and as always, be sure to ask your slots-related questions. Hi, my name is John Friedel. Welcome to Professor Slots, a channel that's all about mastering casino slots so you can win your way to success. If you've ever walked into a casino, looked around, and wondered what's going on with slots, I can help. Getting some warning messages. I want to make sure. Okay. Thank you, Larry. Thanks again for joining us today, whether you are listening on the podcast, watching this video later, or here with us on the live stream at noon Eastern Time each Saturday. I'm glad you're all here. Today is Saturday, June 27th, 2020, and this morning, the American Gaming Association's live casino tracker shows 782 U.S. casinos have reopened and 207 remain closed. That's right, another 48 casinos have opened in the last week. We're up from 74% last Saturday to nearly 80% of all U.S. casinos having reopened. For updates, visit AGA's live casino tracker using this convenient link, professorslots.com/tracker. Let's check in with the live chat to briefly say hello. I got here a little bit early. If you want to have a chat before the show, we've been maybe visiting a bit much and in the last few shows, and so I just show up a little bit early and chat with people then. Let's see, I've said hello to everyone here. Larry's here. Excellent. Jeffrey, welcome. Jeffrey's in Maine, and Andrea is in Virginia. So hello, everybody, and great to see you. We have also the usual cast of characters, Joe from California, Chip from Ohio, Chuck from Missouri, and let's see, Jan is here. And I know plenty of others are listening in who aren't signed in. And hey, I welcome you guys as much as I do, all the others. There are so many people who watch this live stream, sometimes not live, a large proportion of them. So you may notice some changes today as I continue to tweak the live show. For instance, if you're on the podcast, you may not notice that I'm no longer wearing my glasses. If I squint a little bit occasionally as I check my notes, please ignore that, but the podcast will. And podcast listeners won't even notice that sort of thing. So that's what you're missing out if you don't come to the live show, which is to say not much. But it's great to get the immediate feedback from the live chat. That's always been very wonderful to have that. But we'll talk about ways for me to hear more from the people who are watching this recording later, and those listening on the podcast also later. So let's just keep on moving. No 15 minutes of dwelling on people. Okay. That was excellent. As with my earlier live streams, my intent with this show is to answer your questions. It's the questions I'm answering aren't just from those from the live chat taking place right now. My intent is to use this time together to answer questions from my audience. If you're currently in the live chat, then ask. If you're new to YouTube, you'll need to sign in for a free YouTube account to use the live chat feature. But please be aware that sometimes your questions are so excellent that I may well need to think about them for a bit before answering. If I've already thought about your answer, I usually can just tell you the answer, but I don't want to, I want to take your questions seriously, and some of them are so excellent that, I take my time with these things. Why? Because you're smart people, and some of your questions can be challenging and, frankly, deserve more than an off-the-cuff response. If the question is on topic for a specific live stream, sometimes called a clarifying question, I'll do my best to answer it right then. If you're listening to this podcast as a podcast, if you're listening to this as a podcast later, typically people are driving or in some other activity where they're listening and can't be distracted too much from what they're doing other than listening to something. Your option, I think your best option, is to call 702-90 slots. That's the area code for Las Vegas, 702, and then 90 slots because of 90 slots in 90 days. So that's the number. It is a Google Voice number. It's you can ask your question there and leave a voicemail. That number also accepts text messages. If you call, don't worry. It goes directly to voicemail. I used to use my business phone number, but callers would kind of freak out when I picked up. It did seem to make their day, though. Anyway, if you call in or text your question, I'll answer it on the next podcast episode or as soon as possible. Remember to let me know if it's okay for me to use your voicemail on the podcast, because I won't do so without your express permission. And finally, for those of you watching this video recording after the live stream is over, the easiest thing for you to do is leave your question as a comment below. Or, again, call or leave a text message at 702-90 slots. And your other option, as for all of you, and I've heard from many of you, is to email me at john@professorslots.com, where John is spelled Jon. Whichever way I get your questions, I'll do my best to answer them on my next live stream. I'm also collecting questions from emails, my consultation sessions, and from comments in my state-by-state slots community on Facebook. My business approach here is to provide a free and efficient way to answer one person's question because it is likely a question many others are quietly wondering about. I should also mention that if you have an urgent need for quick answers to many questions, for you, I'd recommend my relatively inexpensive consultation session where you'll have my undivided attention to address any of your slots-related gambling questions or concerns. Sign up at professorslots.com/consult. If you've been holding off on signing up, I mention this because if you've been holding off on signing up for a consult, don't. I'll be increasing its cost in about a week. So in all seriousness, it'd be best for you to lock in a consult now. I look forward to your wonderful questions wherever you are and however you ask them. Today's topic is on state gaming regulations and what you need to know, as well as getting to know common legal gaming classifications. If you've both of these topics are articles on my website with links to them available in the video description, as well as on the podcast show notes at professorslots.com/episode 97, which isn't available as I speak, but rather will be available when my next podcast episode airs. So I'm talking about these questions today. And again, as I've done in the past, this is not my going over the article. There will be, this is my putting in how it all connects, right? How everything comes together. Articles are on a topic, and here we are talking about those articles and how they relate to the overall approach you might want to take to improve your gambling performance, the connections between the two. So this is the only place you're going to find that until my online course is completed and up and running, which is a few months away. So I'm talking about these topics today because of several questions I've gotten, but also because it's the next step. My winning slot strategies are, at a high level, business related. I can't make you more lucky when you flip a coin in the air because by somehow making it land on heads more often. In terms of slot machines, I can't make the random number generator in a slot machine cause a jackpot more often. I can't do that. That's not ability that I have. But I can do something very similar. See, the casino can do that. The casino has control over the electronics involved in a random number generator and can control the odds. How much control and exactly what's going on is a subject of other articles and other conversations we can have. But so what I can do is explain to you how to take advantage of the casino who has the ability to control the odds. Slot machines are not card games. Slot machines are electronics which are adjustable. Okay, so flipping a coin is like a card game. All right, you can't control the shuffle. You're making it random, and slot machines are controllable by humans. The only way you can change the odds on a card game is to change the rules of the card game. Okay, I'm going to quickly check in with this chat. I see more than a few things being said, and I want to check in. Let's see. Hello from Philly, Pennsylvania. Went to Harris. This is from Mr. Bill 6666. Went to first thing yesterday. It was chaos there. Hey, Mr. Bill 6666. Why don't you go to professorslots.com/FBPA. That's Facebook, Pennsylvania. FBPA, and that's a Facebook slots community. And tell everybody, tell your fellow, local slots enthusiasts. I'm sure they'd love to hear that, particularly the details there. We're getting a lot of interest from locals. Otherwise, I'm interested in the details too. Chaos, really. Andrea, yeah, right. See, exactly. She's asking. She wants to know about that area. So I've set up these, and I'll talk about them in a moment. I've set up these Facebook groups private. You have to join, you have to agree to the terms like no spam, etc. But once you do that, I'll approve it. And then, talk amongst yourselves. Post videos, post pictures, just, no spam. And them's the rules. And we have an individual from New York State, Shannon. Excellent. Hi, Shannon. And Denise, welcome. I'm glad to see you in chat. Right, so we're going through a few changes here and gradual changes, hopefully nothing too unusual. I was just talking about how I can't change your luck, but I can explain how casinos can change how random number generators function, the odds of winning. So that's where that's what we kind of want to talk about today. For instance, as best as I can tell during my travels to casinos far and wide, is about 1/3 of these all casinos, 1/3 of them have set up their slot machines to offer a taste to players within a few bets of their sitting down to play. The casino gives them this taste to get them to stay, spend that taste, then spend whatever else they've brought. So this is an example of what I can do and what casinos can do and how I can help you with casinos. As you may have heard me say before, if you've been on the show or seen some of my other content, my winning slot strategy here for this one is to take advantage of this casino business practice and collect tastes from many slot machines by using my 5-pull method. Officially, I call it my winning strategy 1, only win immediately. A link to this article is in the YouTube video description and in my podcast show notes. Also, its video is coming soon. I have far more content on my website than I have made videos for, but that'll change soon. Videos of all my winning slot strategies are coming soon to YouTube. I'm talking about state regulations, state regs, and gaming classifications because it's the next step after what we've been discussing the last few weeks on my live streams. Those are all available to you if you haven't seen them. Some slots enthusiasts, especially those without a lot to choose from, will just jump in right past picking a casino to play at. They'll not concern themselves with which slot machines to choose, and they might not even consider keeping records to determine how they're doing at meeting their goals. Yet, if you're a slots enthusiast and you're here with me now, you do choose to be interested in one or more of these. That's why I've discussed each over the last 4 live streams. But once you've assessed your casino, you've chosen your candidate slot machines, you've identified your goals, and started keeping gambling records, we still have one more area in which to improve your gambling performance, to raise your baseline payout percentage for winning at slots. So what is it? It's your gaming jurisdiction, okay? In general, worldwide, it's called gaming jurisdiction. And since this broadcast is going out worldwide, I'll use that term. But in the United States, these gaming jurisdictions are 50 U.S. states and 5 U.S. territories. That's American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, which is a crazy place for slots. Puerto Rico, another very busy slots industry, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, there's another one. So everything, American Samoa is not too busy with slots, but they have the non-U.S. territory of Samoa, which is, then Guam is mostly just Air Force bases or other stations, naval stations. So those, don't ignore those territories. They're just crazy stuff going on there. Looks kind of fun, but I haven't been to the South Pacific recently. Then we also have our lone federal district, the District of Columbia, containing the city of Washington, D.C. Now, if you're located in Canada, and I didn't see Lois and Dave in the chat earlier, maybe they're here. They're in Canada, but you could have, if you're in Canada, you could have your own gaming jurisdiction. It's could be one of Canada's 13 provinces: Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick. Some interesting names here: Newfoundland and Labrador. That's one province. Northwest Territories is the name of a province. Nova Scotia, Nunavik. I'm pronouncing that terribly, I'm sure. Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Yukon. So those are the Canadian provinces. One thing I need to do before too long is reach out past the United States. I'm very, I speak English, so it's English-speaking countries where these podcasts are being heard around the world. And the YouTube, of course, is worldwide as well. Somewhat restricted in that manner, but I also need to learn more about what's going on in some of the gaming jurisdictions outside the United States. I'd love to be as informed about them as I am, as I've made myself for U.S. states, territories, and our federal district. So now I am calling every state or province a gaming jurisdiction. But not everyone agrees. For instance, slot machine manufacturers talk about gaming industries, gaming jurisdictions, which allow some form of gaming. Only the ones that offer gaming to them are gaming jurisdictions. Of the U.S. states, only Hawaii and Utah completely prohibit all forms of gaming. Hawaii does it for economic reasons. the state can make 10 times on income taxes for travel resorts than from a casino occupying the same amount of land, while Utah prohibits all gaming for religious reasons. I think I saw somebody else jump into chat. We have Michael from Colorado. Welcome, Michael. He's from Denver. So he doesn't have an update yet for casino visits to Black Hawk or Central City. Appreciate. He also says he likes the last live show on the topic. Thank you very much. I try. Right. So there's also something I want to get into a little bit later, but let's get the bulk of what I want to share first. I've been getting some questions about illegal gambling. Not things like having March Madness polls, and that's illegal. Did you know? Yeah. Not polls, but the brackets. But there's also sports betting. That's more sports betting. There's also slot machines. Illegal slot machines, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what how might I present you with that information? Should I present you with that information, and kind of what it's doing to the gaming industry at various locations, and also what some of these states might have. Like I just said, Utah prohibits all gaming for religious reasons. Yeah, well, it's also a great place to enjoy gaming, illegal gaming. At convenience stores, it's just, drive into a gas station and play slots. They're illegal, but, well, we'll talk more about this in a moment. Paula popped in late, and Chuck is good. Talk amongst yourselves. As I've mentioned before, visiting seems to not be ideal, and so we will be doing less of that, but that's why I'm showing up early now. So, right. So there's plenty of illegal gaming going on in lots of states, even if the state prohibits it. And I'll come back to that. And that's why I call every state a gaming jurisdiction, and that's a little unusual for people to talk about these things. First, even one law, my reasoning, even one law on gaming, say an amendment in the state constitution, banning all gambling. I consider that a gaming regulation. And if you have a gaming regulation, I say it's a gaming jurisdiction. It can just be that one law, and that alone, I say, makes that state a gaming jurisdiction. And perhaps I should have mentioned that this sooner, but why should you care? You should care because you have a choice to make, which will influence your slots gambling performance. You can ignore it if you want, like ignoring which casino you're going to, or what slot machine to play, or what is your gambling goals, or keeping records for to win again later with your tax preparation, gambling, your gambling deductions, which might lead to a return. You can ignore all that. I'm not saying that you should even care. That's on you. But if you're thinking about slots, and we think about slots, we're slots enthusiasts. So, we don't want to leave winnings on the table. Now, I thought about, I made that phrase up an hour ago, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, we're slots enthusiasts. Why are we saying leaving winnings on the table? How about this? We're giving away our bankroll to the casino. No reason to reference table games here, right? So here's my question for you. Where are you? Take a look. Take a minute. Seriously, take a minute. Look around. Are you driving? Do you travel? Throughout a year, vacationing or staying at home or visiting family, all the reason, travel for work. Where do you play slot machines? Personally, please consider that carefully. This is the key of what we're talking about today. Where do you go to play slots? By gaming jurisdiction. You can also talk about, do you go to the Caribbean? Do you go on cruise ships? Do you go on some other stuff? But let's just make it simple. Not everybody does those things, travel internationally or goes on cruise ships, etc. Where do you travel? How far away is the nearest state border, right? Consider what exists. I will give you my example. Personally, I live in southwestern Ohio, but I'm not far from Indiana or Kentucky, all right? 20 miles, less, more, roughly that, from both of those states. My family is in Michigan. When traveling to see them, I drive by Detroit, which means I pass near Caesars Windsor in the Canadian province of Ontario across the river from Detroit, Michigan. Otherwise, it wouldn't take much for me to travel to reach Pennsylvania, or in a slightly different direction, West Virginia. These are just the states connected to Ohio and the states connected to Ohio. It wouldn't be hard to get to Chicago. It's not much further away than parts of northern Indiana from where I am. It might even be a little more accessible given the directions of the highways. So that's, for me, 5 states. 5 states and 1 Canadian province is readily available to me within only a few hours worth of driving. Yes, I understand from many people's comments in my state-by-state Facebook slots communities that our favorite casinos are often our nearest casinos sometimes. For a lucky few, it's only a few miles away. Yet, 5 states can be a lot to learn about to improve your slots gambling performance. In a moment, we'll talk about what you might learn. I understand this can be a lot. I think you'll get used to it quickly, but if you haven't looked at your state or the neighboring states, it can take a little while to sort of understand what your options are. But what I tried to do, when I started my Professor Slots business a few years ago, I decided to, I understood this, so I decided to offer slots enthusiasts an online resource to help with exactly this. And may I mention that it is free, all right? So it's been going strong ever since. 3 years ago this month, I started publishing weekly articles on my website where I provided every bit of useful information I could find on each U.S. state, U.S. territory, and the federal district. Any useful bit of information for slots enthusiasts, okay? So since there are 56 of these states, territories, and 1 federal district, it took me about 13 months to go through all of them. The first time I went through all of them, I understood better what people are going through in each state. There was just things I learned I couldn't, believe. And I never studied some of the things having to do with tribal casinos because I wasn't any in my state. There was growing up, and that sort of answered some questions for me. Then I saw things like commercial casinos run by the state, and I learned more about, people in Detroit going international across the river to Canada and what that was like. What's it like to have a casino that is on a river next to, and we'll talk about this in a minute, on a river, which the other state next to it has its own riverboats, and, it's practically a border war going on between those 2 states within their state gaming regulations to try to, beat the competition. So all this just sort of fell on me. I thought it was a fine investment, but not just for me, but for, it's a resource for you. So I spent 13 months, starting about 3 years ago this month, and I went through every state, and I never stopped. Okay. So 2 years ago, it was July 3rd, 2 years ago, I started again from the beginning, Alabama, right? Finished Wyoming the week before. Alabama, the Wyoming for the first time, and then Alabama for the second time to see what's happened in a year. That's another reason to do all this. A lot can happen in a year. So 2 years ago, early next month, I began again. adding additional subsections, which after having seen, every state, having worked on every state, I realized there were some topics that I could cover, that you would be interested in. Now that I actually seen every state, done every state. So I added some new subsections, theoretical payout returns. Lots of states had those, and also return statistics and how to find them and what kind they were. So there was a section I added for that. I added a section, actually I think it was the next one. I'm on my third time through all of them at this point. And I added the Facebook communities and in any case, I gained experience in what every state has to offer that first time through. I finished weekly state-by-state articles over yet another 13 months, which near the end of July last year. That was my second time through everything, each time through adding more. I'm now but still trying to make it readable and friendly and nice. I'm now on my third time through. You may be interested in knowing, Chip, that Ohio was last week, and Denise and Jan and others that Oklahoma is, today or tomorrow, it's this week. So for this third series, one update I added was state maps. A map of the state with casinos pointed out with their name and city. So you could get an overall idea of what where they were. These maps show counties, but not express. One thing I need to do is improve the map so I can show like major expressways. But I have to get some graphics together, some people for that. So then next time through, when I start the series over again for the fourth time, I'm considering adding another section on the pros and cons of each state with its neighboring states, besides maybe a better map. I'm considering options. But why would I want to put in a section on the pros and cons of each state when compared to its neighboring states? It's because I've started to notice that some bordering states are battling it out with one another to capture limited income tax dollars from slots enthusiasts. It's more than competitive out there. Some places are so intense it's practically a border war over you. And the next series will have other improvements. Suggestions are welcome. And one of the key things that I'm seeing, and I'm sure there's more, just jumped out at me, was what's going on between Illinois and Indiana along the river, Des Plaines River, I think it's called. Let's just forget the fact that Illinois is seriously considering becoming the Las Vegas of the Midwest. All right, they're going to put something downtown like a Las Vegas Strip. It's just this huge thing. They've always protected the downtown area because they had horse racing, so they made sure all the slot machines the casinos were outside of the downtown area. And Riverboat Casinos is where they started, but now it looks as though they're just gonna go the other way. First, they let slot machines into bars. Had to be approved by the local municipality, bars and taverns, and they got they did that and they got flooded. I mean, this is years of me now, studying each state and just being amazed at some of the things that are possible and that you might see in your state, and then beginning to understand what might be happening. Now, one of the reasons why I haven't really talked too much about these states is because each state is because it's a lot of information, and maybe you don't care, right? If it's not your state and it's not your state, bordering your state, and it's not a state that you visit, then what's the diff? So, in that case, 1/56th of you might be interested in one of those states. So but now, there's so many more of you that actually is a significant number. So I'm kind of coming back to this online resource so you can begin to understand some of the things we're going to talk about shortly. I haven't checked in with chat for recently, so let me just see how we're doing here. Hey, Steve, welcome. Hopefully, everybody is starting to get used to the new start time of noon. If you haven't been here, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we switched over from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I can see we have 22 participants. No, sorry, 48, which is huge compared to other times. Some people aren't able to make the 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, but can much better make the noon time, because that's like 9 o'clock in the morning in California. And glad to make the switch. Went through a whole poll and checked with everybody, and this is what we came up with. But it does take a little bit of getting used to if you've had been coming to my live streams for 6 months. So, Steve, welcome. Shannon asks, how here in my area, people seem to like the Indian casinos, which are not regulated. I had never understood that. I got a section here because state gaming regulations include a connection to tribal casinos. So I'll talk about what that is. And I've got some other articles I didn't mention, but come to my website and you'll see some tribal casino category at the top of my menu, and you can just pick that one. You can see the 2-3 articles I have about this, but you say I have not much winning there. There's reasons for that. Better winning in the non-tribe Indian casinos in the state. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. We'll talk about a little bit of what's going on there. I think it's just fascinating. And if you don't have a tribal casino in your state, like I didn't for many years, I don't now, but now I'm learning more about them because my family does, and I've been to more than a few now. It is, something I don't know how I put it. I don't want to be derogatory or anything like that, but someone said I'm very PC, I guess. I try to have an opinion. I just try to be PC about it. I don't think, that tribal casinos are able to do things like adjust quickly, and with all the technology changes that we're seeing. I'll get into that. I've got a few things to say about that. So right now, states are battling it out over you to compete with bordering states, and if that's not an opportunity to take advantage, then I don't know what is. Okay, that's great for slots players. Well, you don't like it here, then go to the other one. You don't even have to say anything. It just battles back and forth. It's like, what? I try to pick casinos throughout the country. Maybe it's near you, maybe it's not. Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. They've been battling it out side by side, casinos in Connecticut for years. And it's made both of them, like, at times, the best casino in the world. Just because they're trying to outcompete their competitor, and that's great. But then you have other places like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I was in a news article or evening news report. You can find it at professorslots.com/ABC27. And if you watch that evening news, report by the anchor in Harrisburg, he talks about what that lonely casino, that one casino in Harrisburg, Penn National, it's a racetrack with slot machines, and Pennsylvania allows you to find the return statistics. They offer those publicly, which is a great thing. So they just went back through the years since the place opened and reported all of that. And it's just fascinating to see what it's like when you have a casino that doesn't have competition, right? Versus Philadelphia, where there's a bunch of casinos, and you can just see the return statistics and how, and where they're better. So that's part of what we're talking about here. Shannon says, for battling states, reference which state is better, New York City or Pennsylvania. I could drive to Penn. Exactly. And that's one of the things I want to start pulling out. Right now, it's kind of on you to, go to my New York state article. And these state-by-state articles are linked to the top menu on my website at professorslots.com. A faster way than sorting through everything shown to you alphabetically. A faster way is to go directly to your state, the state you're interested in, by using professorslots.com / the state's 2-letter postal designation. For example, professorslots.com / OH is my Ohio article. For you, Shannon, if you go to professorslots.com / NY, that'll take you to my New York article. And same thing, professorslots.com / PA for Pennsylvania, and you'll see that article, and you can start to compare some of the sections having to do with, like theoretical payout returns, if they have them, if they don't have them, what are they, comparing return statistics. And it shouldn't be too hard to do your own comparison, but I think the area of growth for me would be to start doing some of those things and just lay it out for people. But it will take me a year to get through 56 articles. But I think that's definitely a need, particularly since you asked. Shop around. I mean, a lot of what I'm talking about in this article is shop around, see what's available, make the best deal. Now, I have a hard time going to another casino when there's one just down the road. I used to be my situation before I moved, and I was like, why would I go to another casino? But then, you sort of have to convince yourself of that. As I've mentioned in the past, when you start winning, when you start, when you figure out the casino business practices to take advantage of your casino that you go to, and, choose your candidate slot machines, and you figured out how to win on them, why would you ever play another slot machine? When I was doing that, 2004 at my Prairie Meadow, when I was doing that at Horseshoe Cincinnati, why did I walk out the door and go over to the high limit room in 2004 and just put $1,000 into a slot machine and just to see what would happen? Why don't I go back to the one where I won 13 taxable jackpots and 4 days of playing and just never, and how many times did I win $1,000? 100? $25, constantly. It was just a winning machine. So why would you ever stop playing it? Go someplace else? Well, for me, as I've discussed in past live streams, for me, my goal is to help you. So I'm go to another casino instead of just sitting down and wearing out the chair at one or two slot machines in the casino that I know how to win at. It's my motivation, my goal. So for those of you who enjoy staying on YouTube, I also want to mention these articles that I was telling you about. For the longest time, the only videos I published on YouTube were these state-by-state articles turned into videos. You'll find them if you go to the article. They're hard to find on YouTube because I basically hid them. If you know exactly where to go, they're there, but they're not easy to find. So you can go to the article and you can find them and you can watch them. It's me in my old studio looking a little bit, this last year has kind of grayed my hair a lot. I'll talk about that some other time. Fantastic, interesting year, but stressful, not because of you guys or anything. It's just I really enjoy this. But in any case, getting away from that, you'll see my old studio that before I got better lighting and lots of reflections and kind of blurry with an old camera and kind of like never looking at the camera, and the technique was all terrible, but the information is there. And I will, I've hidden those on YouTube, but I'll make them unhidden again because I've decided to do that. I'll make them unhidden again sometime this weekend. I also have for you an efficient way to watch them, which my recommendation is to go to your home state. Go to the YouTube video on your home state, and then once that video ends, let the next video play, because I've set it up so that the next video and you might have to click like a little box in the corner that says next video. Once you do that, then you only have to do that in the first video, because what it'll do is it'll circle around to all the bordering states. It'll automatically play bordering states of the first video that you pick, and that way you can learn about your home state, and then it'll go through everything that's on a border to your state, and that's my efficient way that I've set it up. So you can go through them one by one, circling around your home state, and each state-by-state video is only a few minutes long. Of course, only this Q&A session, others like it, live streams are out an hour long. I don't know that I've ever gotten to like 10 or 11 minutes, but most of these are like 5 minutes, which is as it should be. So, we've covered why you need to know about your favorite gaming jurisdictions. Now let's talk about what you might find that is potentially so valuable in improving your odds of winning at slots. In my overall gaming regulations article and upcoming video, it's also episode number 14. If you're a podcast listener, I start off with explaining how regulations change within each gaming jurisdiction because of the popularity and acceptance of each gaming jurisdiction. You don't need to look any further than recent and sweeping changes in legalized sports betting to find the best example I can offer. Next, I explain in my gaming regulations article how what all gaming jurisdictions might try to regulate. These include laws, but also a legal structure, a legal framework. Yes, laws are needed, but so are how to implement those laws, enforce them, perform investigations, offer gaming reports to the public, issue gaming licenses, and a whole lot more. Yes, Nevada is a fine example to all other U.S. states on how to do this, not to mention to the rest of the world for more than 80 years. But other states have special needs that a landlocked desert state perhaps doesn't cover. Cruise ships come to mind. More tribal casinos, only tribal casinos. Just there's varying impacts with these things. All this seems straightforward, if not exactly easy, right? But let's complicate it. It's straightforward, what I've explained. But let's complicate matters. And going back to Sharon's question, let's complicate matters a bit with a big-time federal law. It's called the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, IGRA, of 1989. At a high level, that federal act says that if your state doesn't completely prohibit gaming, and further, that your state has American Indian tribes which have federal recognition status, not easy to get, by the way. That's such a huge understatement, but it's not easy to get that status. Then those tribes can offer certain games. This is a federal law, so this applies to all states, whether or not they have tribes. There's a definition that all states can use for types of games. So at the least, these are class 1 tribal ceremonies. Somewhere in the middle is class 2, which is community bingo halls. But in the last decade or so, this has led to not card bingo, but less card bingo and more bingo gaming machines. And at most, I suppose I could say there's full-on class 3 slot machines like those found in most casinos in Las Vegas and elsewhere in Nevada. While this federal act is common for every state, each state enacts it slightly differently. How? Well, which games, if any, has the state not prohibited? To come to a mutual agreement to that question and more, state governments and tribes have to negotiate an agreement called a Tribal State Gaming Compact, which has to be subsequently approved by the federal government. And we'll go over some of that in a later time. I have some articles. Just choose the category tribal gaming from the top of my website menu, and it'll take you to those several articles that'll talk a little bit more about this, and we'll talk about it here at some point more. But for now, if the state you're interested in has tribal casinos, then most of the gaming regulations you're looking for are in these gaming compacts. I think one of the issues affecting the gaming industry in the U.S. right now is one very small aspect of these gaming compacts. It seems so small, but it's so very impactful, significant. Remember from a few minutes ago when I mentioned how the popularity and acceptance of gaming matters to changes in the gaming industry of any gaming jurisdiction, like changes to sports betting? Remember when I said that? Well, this small but significant thing I have concerns about with tribal state gaming compacts is that most of them includes legal language which states that they are good for 30 years. For some states, it's valid forever. Remember, this IGRA came out in 1989. Some of these compacts were put in place as quickly as like 2 years afterwards. Some of them are from 1991. You don't have to look any further than Oklahoma to understand what this means, especially during January this year. I know that was years ago, right? But you can, Oklahoma had the kind of conflict that might exist. Many of these compacts includes wording like, unless mutually agreed to renegotiate by both parties. Some updates have taken place since the early 90s, like converting from coin-operated machines to voucher technology. But these long-term compacts are starting to get dated, especially as slots and betting technology advances. Thinking past not using coins anymore, what about central servers? What about sports betting? What about in-state competition between tribal and commercial casinos, where commercial casinos can make relatively quick changes to gaming regulations through the state legislature to perhaps take advantage of inflexible statements in slow-to-change gaming compacts? So, Shannon, that's kind of what's going on here, and there's a bit more like it's hard to get a hold of the compact. Sometimes there's a copy of a copy of a copy that's available from the tribe. Sometimes the Bureau of Indian Affairs at the federal level will have those signed compacts, and that's the gaming regulations. Seems like the state gaming commissions are just so much better at just laying everything out. In any case, I'm seeing some lots of good comments, lots of comments. Let me double check. Oh, I see. Richard arrived. Hey, Richard. And Lisa. Hello, Lisa. So before that was Mel. How can PA paying 55% taxes compete with New Jersey paying 10% taxes? Yes, that's an important point. Nevada not having income taxes on gambling, that's an advantage. But you're talking about state, and federal, is common for all the states. So I have to dig into I have to better understand your question. Are you talking about income taxes for individuals, paying state income taxes, or are you talking about the casinos having to pay to the state? I think you might be talking about the casinos having to pay to the state, because those gaming regulations are, $35 million for a gaming license, $10 million. I'm talking about Ohio. I have some of that memorized. $10 million in improvements to education for employees per year. These are some of the state regs that may not necessarily, only affect the odds of winning in the sense that the casino has its bill to pay. Now, you may also be a casino employee and might like to know some of this stuff. I don't know your circumstances, but it is interesting to see these differences and consider what they mean. So, yeah, Mel, there's a lot going on, and understanding what's going on is important. Hey, Linda, welcome. Richard is here. And he's reporting in on Cherokee, North Carolina, how different dynamics are going on. Shannon, after you speak about high limit slots, how about penny versus nickel versus dime versus quarter? Okay, so yes. So she asks about winning differences. There is a myth out there, and I'm going to try to jump through this. I have something else I need to say and get to. There's an article, top 7 advantages to payout return statistics on my website article. There's a myth section which talks about the 5 places that have slot machine denomination return statistics, 5 states, and it shows what the answer to your question, which is it's not high limits. High limits don't pay out more all the time. About half the states that report by denomination do, and the other half don't. Sometimes it's penny slots, sometimes it's nickel slots. So it's a myth that all of them pay out high. That's not exactly what you're asking, but that's the myth that I was reporting on, and that's in one of my articles. Let me quickly check this. Jan, yep. She's answering. Right, so I'll let you guys talk. Jan says, are tribal casino gaming compacts available to the public? Yes, but it's all over the place. You can try. Last stop is kind of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA.gov, I think it is. Federal level, you can check there half the time. But then some of the state gaming commissions will offer it and make 100 of them available. Some places like Oklahoma have a model gaming compact, which all the different ones, all the different tribes use, and some others for convenience sake, and others just made their own. It's all kind of different. And I have some articles on the tribal gaming which talks about these topics. I'm not sure I can help you, Shannon. Feel free to email me, but we'll talk. Yes. So gaming statistics, it seems like Shannon might need to look at the last one. Right. Okay. So talking amongst yourselves, and that's great. And I will, let's see, we have something very important I want to discuss, and I got 3 minutes or so. So what do I want to talk about here? You may not like what your state offers. Okay. Some states offer more than your state, and you may not like that. But that's, like things like payout return statistics by slot machine denomination and casino weekly, or monthly, which is also great. That's great to have. But only 45 out of 50 states offer that. What if your state doesn't have it? Well, frankly, that's where I come in. Using observational skills and understanding how a casino is using business practices to market slots play to their patrons, we don't need to know gaming return statistics by slot machine denominations. Yes, knowing those statistics is helpful because they eliminate quite a bit of the work you'll otherwise need to perform, but it's just one source of information. Having both the most detailed statistics as well as knowing how casinos and gambling works is the true ideal situation, but lots of slots enthusiasts win without knowing those statistics. And I'm the guy explaining how. So let's switch. So I think I'm caught up in chat. What I wanted to get to before we end here is, unfortunately, we've lost a member of our slots enthusiast community. Richard, from our Oklahoma slots enthusiast community, has let us know that his wife, Robin, passed away suddenly last Sunday, and asks that we keep him and his family in our thoughts and prayers. You've got it, Richard. As many other members have commented on your post, we're so sorry for your loss. Please accept our sincerest condolences. Richard also told us that Robin watched the Oklahoma group's posts like a hawk. So if you're a member of the Oklahoma community and haven't said anything, please, do. And there's a wonderful picture, a delightful looking woman on his post. So to close, join your local slots community on Facebook to get the latest on casino reopenings in your area. Share your casino trip reports and see what your local slots enthusiasts are sharing. Every state has a private Facebook group slots community. Find yours at professorslots.com/FB. Watch more of my videos to improve your slots gambling performance. Those are coming up. Have fun, be safe, make good choices.